Well, hello world. Welcome back to another page-turning Viva la Renaissance podcast episode. Happy spring! You can hear the sounds of spring here in the Sierra Mountains behind me. It's a cacophony, constantly buzzing chainsaws that starts around 7:30 in the morning and doesn't stop until dark. I even learned how to use a chainsaw last week on the marijuana farm that I help out on. And yeah, that's right. When I'm not trying to change the world with art, I am sometimes wielding a chainsaw and doing my part to prevent the wildfires, cleaning up the forest and taking down all those dead trees and limbs and burning all that stuff up before it gets too hot. Whew! And I just recovered from a real serious case of poison oak from all that too. So, never a dull moment around here. But this episode is really exciting. I recorded it a couple weeks ago. I went down to Wonder Valley, which is, about 45 minutes or so past Joshua Tree National Park. If you're familiar with that area in the Mojave Desert, which is it's 3 hours away from LA. And it's very inhabited with LA residents now who all fled the city from COVID. So it's really interesting place to be. But I went down there for a show a couple weeks ago, which was super fun. And I also planned a trip to the Palm Desert, which was another hour and a half further to visit my guru, my former guru, and also an artist that I greatly admire and a woman I just absolutely adore. I'm really thrilled to have her on the show. And this interview meant a lot to me. I haven't seen Kim since my wedding. She officiated my wedding in 2012, and we haven't seen each other since then. We've stayed in touch online and things like that, but, we went off in different directions. I moved to New York. She went to grad school and had a hugely successful yoga business in Baltimore. So, reconnecting with Kim has been amazing, and I'm really excited to share the interview with you. But before I did, I thought I would just give you a little background on my own sort of beginning yoga practice. Kim and I ended up talking a lot about yoga, and this is how we came to know each other. But we are both also artists and have that in common. So imagine, if you will, it's like 2000, 2001. I'm living in Baltimore. I'm in my mid-20s. And so, my strategy of doing absolutely nothing for my physical fitness is catching up to me. And I start looking around, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I'd never been a particularly athletic person. I never liked team sports. None of that stuff appealed to me. But back then, it was like there was a lot of kickboxing classes. And I found this yoga class at an Aikido center. So the first yoga that I really found was this older man. It was like a $5 class for 2 hours in an Aikido center. And he was like a Dr. Seuss drill sergeant, I called him. He would talk and rhyme frequently and then just occasionally kind of like shout things in a very commanding way. So he would say things like, breathe through your toes as if they were your nose. Now relax your genitals. Relax them. Like he would just like shout out, relax them, like that all the time. It was really funny. Anyway, so I did that class for a while, and I was going to kickboxing, and I started running, and I was like, getting into my fitness. And after about a year and a half, I wanted I was ready for more advanced yoga. So I found an ad for Midtown Yoga, hot vinyasa class. And I was terrified. I mean, the idea of doing yoga in essentially a sauna sounded like a terrible idea to me because I thought it was hard enough. But, eventually I made my way there. And of course I loved it. And it took me a while. I would go to earlier classes. So I didn't get to meet Kim right away. But then when I started considering taking the teacher training, her 200-hour teacher training, after I'd been there over a year, I went to one of her classes, and it was like they had, I would see all the people come flooding in, and it was, packed. Every class she had, just this like absolutely like devout following, and every single class was packed to the gills. It was just mat to mat. So, you immediately had to imagine, that you're more like your social proximity of actually being in India, and your just any sort of personal space is straight out the window. And it's just like mat to mat, super packed in, incredibly hot, completely sweaty, drenched, just the most intense class. And there's Kim, this tiny little woman, just cheerfully reminding us during class that, 90 minutes of torture is what it takes to get 90 years of a happy, healthy life. And she would be in there, just ringing, the class would start with like her ringing a bell and reading poetry and playing richest, most wonderful music. And you're doing these insane physical movements together. It's like insane Zen ninja training and just dripping, like everything. You just like wrung out like a dish rag. And you would just have this absolutely transcendent experience. And it was incredible. It felt like you were just moved by it, completely moved by it. So this was like, who Kim was, the guru of the studio. And then I got to do her teacher training, which was just absolutely like one of the greatest periods of my life. It was about 20 of us, I guess, over about 4-month period. And it was really early into the whole yoga boom. It was like around that time. It was like I was part of the early revivals of the burlesque, the circus, and yoga communities. I think were the ones I was part of the most. And so back then it wasn't in any one of those as saturated as it is now. So it was much different experience. But yeah, our teacher training was magical, and it was like I never felt as connected or rooted to a group of people, to a place, and to feeling just the energy of the universe, the source, what divinity, and God, as some people call it, whatever you want to call it. It was having these transcendent experiences over and over, and then you link them together into this big, rich experience. And so that studio really was my home studio. Kim I've always thought of her as my guru, and that my relationship to yoga was very sacred to me too. And even though I didn't always get to teach because I was traveling for performing so much, and then moving to New York and LA, it's just too competitive and crazy. And then the scenes just changed so much that I don't even know if I wanted to be part of them anymore. Sort of just the trendiness of some of the yoga, where it went. Anyway, we get into it a little bit. I know you're going to love the conversation. It was really a fun one for me. And when I was asking Kim how she wanted me to refer to her, I was like, are you like a former guru or retired guru? And she mentioned recovering guru, which I thought was really funny. Because it just brings to mind, Catholics, and it actually made me think also just about the problems with gurus, and abusing their power and taking advantage of their students in all kinds of ways. And it made me think that maybe being a guru doesn't need to be a life sentence, that, I kind of like how Kim approached it. She gave it her all for a period of time, and it's taking on a new form, and it's all still in there. But maybe you don't have to be a guru forever. Maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe that sort of very rigorous, ethical, maybe it'd be better to only have to live that level of austerity for a short time, is what I've been thinking. That you can have many phases of your life, and it might take some of the pressure off. And I was thinking too that we haven't had experience with a lot of female gurus. And so, that might be something that is changing over time as we have their influence now. And I'm really grateful to feel like I had such a amazing foundation in a spiritual system, which has served me so well for 20 years now. So our guest today is a trusted lantern holder on the path in my own personal life. So we are in great hands. This conversation just warmed my little heart right up. I was so excited to be out and about traveling and seeing old friends and reconnecting. And it was just really excited to share this with you. Kim Manfredi is not only a former recovering yoga guru whose legacy in Baltimore is going to have ripple effects for decades. And she's not only an accomplished painter with a master's and a bachelor's degree in painting from the Maryland Institute College of Art, which is one of the top schools in the country. Oh no, she's so much more. She is a woman of depth and substance, a woman I highly respect, a highly seasoned and incredibly prolific oil painter. And she just moved into a brand new open to the public studio in Palm Desert, California, which you can go and visit her at and see her paintings and buy them and put them in your house and contemplate the meaning of life. She is the once and future guru of art, painting, cycling, yoga, and the great mystery of life itself. Please welcome Kim Manfredi. Kim, I am so happy to be here. I really am just like squealing on the inside. Yes, welcome to Viva la Renaissance, you guys. Meet my guru, Kimiji.
That's true. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled, and we've been talking about this from afar for some time.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad you're in Wonder Valley. Is that right?
Yeah.
To be able to be so close and come down and be with me. It's really nice.
Yeah, thanks for having me at your new studio. So why don't we start with this place?
Okay.
Tell me how this came about, and I know it's related to your COVID experience too, which I feel like everyone is now. We just need to know everyone's COVID story.
Yeah.
In addition, so yeah.
Because I mean, not that you would ever wish for a pandemic.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me personally, COVID immersed me into my, solitary practice. It took all of the distractions, even the opportunity to go back east and visit my parents away. Mm-hmm. And so that aloneness that comes with isolation.
Stillness too.
Stillness. But for me, the aloneness is an opportunity to see the parts of myself that I wasn't really willing to see, and so that's an opportunity for growth, change, and healing. And so how
much do you want to share about that? Can you talk more specifically? Because I think that's such a great point about.
Well, I mean, I like to connect it right now. I'm connecting it to my process of creativity. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, first barrier, COVID comes along, everything is no longer as it was. For us, including our finances. So it wasn't just our social life, or it was like our world turned upside down. Everything that we thought we had planned for the rest of our lives was gone. And so, the kind of persistence and the dedication required to continue to go in the studio and make paintings was immense.
That is so hard because to tap into creativity when your survival fear is on the surface.
Yeah.
That's been so hard through COVID for me too.
Yeah.
It's
but what I realized was that that's also the well for inspiration. So I started a process which I'm calling making, not knowing. And that is not only referring to the content of the artwork, but also being an artist, not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, and continuing to create and make what I think are the best paintings of my life. And I've been painting for 35 years now, with a brief sort of hiatus to be a yoga guru, which got,
time.
It was, again, you know, that opportunity really taught me to be still, right? That yoga practice. And then that's required in the studio. But, so I was in my garage painting, thinking I was never going to have to, have a worry ever again, you know, and, you know, we ran out of money basically. And I started to, paint these pet portraits for $99 each.
Amazing. And
I painted
lovely.
200 pets last
Oh my
year.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, you know, is not only like a monumental event on my part as an artist, but the community that came out to support me when, you know, whether they knew why or not, they saw this, you know, opportunity, you know, to have some artwork of their beloved, right, by me, and they supported me. So that was an incredible, not only, you know, however many hours of skill building, right, because I had to really be able to do 5 a week, but it was also, you know, sort of created a transformed environment in my body, where I saw myself as a painter, a very skilled painter, rather than, you know, still a painter who was like looking. And then I realized, wow, I am a skilled painter. And that's when I could no longer put figures in the artwork. I was rendering these pets. I knew how to render. I understood the skill. And so that's when the abstraction started to come back. And that is amazing for me because I feel like the abstraction is an illustration, more or less, of this process of making, not knowing. So
it's been amazing. Yeah, watching you become an abstract painter on Instagram. You know, like, these are abstract times.
It's true.
This is helping. Yeah, I was like, it was because I watched that whole progression. It's really great.
Yeah, and like the way that I approach abstraction is through materiality. So the painting, the paint, and the texture of the paint and the color of the paint and the value of the paint and the thickness of the paint and the sheen of the paint, all of those characteristics are what sort of seduce me into making marks. And then as I'm making those marks, what I'm realizing is that something, usually a place, emerges as subject. So I don't really start with a subject. I kind of start with this impetus to create, and through that process of creating, a very specific place, a thing, quality emerges, and then I use my skills to try to communicate that in the picture itself.
Interesting. And so, but it's place, so but not landscape necessarily.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could call them landscape, but they're landscapes in my imagination, they're landscapes in my memory, they're landscapes that I see on my bicycle rides, which is going to be portrayed at anywhere from, 13 to 50 miles an hour, right? So it's not like I'm going out into the desert and doing a plein air kind of painting.
Yeah.
But
yes, because there is so much movement in
the work.
Yeah.
I think it's true.
So you said that abstraction came back. So what do you mean by that?
So, well, when I did my master's at MICA, which I did in the middle of Charm City Yoga, right?
So your undergrad was in painting from there too, right?
Yeah, I did that. I graduated from MICA the first time in 1988. And then in the studio, we're running the yoga in like 2007. All of a sudden, these graduate students from the Hofberger School of Painting started coming to class. And I started hanging out with them, and we had little shows together. And then I applied to the school. I realized I wanted to get that degree. And Grace Hartigan was the director at that time, and she was a very famous abstract expressionist painter who had left New York for a lot of reasons that you would understand, in the sense that she was somewhat ostracized for wanting her life to be a specific way. But that being said, she started this program and invited me in. And so I got to study with her, and her approach to painting was very sort of, I mean, I could only describe it as masculine. I mean, it was strong and forceful and confident and things like that. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because a master's program is 2 years, and at the end of our first year, she passed away.
Whoa.
Uh-huh.
And she died in the middle of that.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like COVID, you would never wish that on anybody, but it was great for us as students because we were at her house, we were taking care of her, like the relationship.
How old was she?
I don't know, in her 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Our relationship with her was very kind of deep.
Wow.
But she was replaced by a woman named Joyce Kozloff, an artist named Joyce Kozloff, who was one of the founders of the pattern and decoration movement in New York in the 1970s.
Oh.
So her whole mission was to bring the traditional women's arts into the realm of fine art, and again, lived somewhat marginalized all the way up until now. She just had her first, not her first, but pattern and decoration had a museum show at MoCA this year, curated by a young curator and, with a lot of national attention. Mm-hmm. So my experience in working with both Grace and Joyce really,
and also because in between that, you had a decorative painting business.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So you have a real experience with the pattern and decoration part as well.
I had that for 15 years, that business. But so my spectrum is broad.
Yeah.
As far as what I can include in my work. What I have permission from my gurus, right, to call art. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I think it shows in the work.
I like that Micah has female teachers in their painting department.
Yeah. Well, I think...
Especially because painting you're right, because, I mean, I have a painting degree from UMBC. I was the last of the painting majors. Yeah, before they kind of moved all the fine art to College Park and really anchored UMBC as the digital imaging place.
Yeah.
And I chose that. I knew that they were doing that, and I was like, this is the path I'm choosing in this world. The world is technological, and I'm choosing to study something very, very traditional for a traditional foundation. I never even thought I was a painter. I've never been good at painting, but I wanted a traditional foundation because I knew I was visual.
Yeah.
And that was how I got it. But there's something very sterile and academic and that was very hard for me.
It's funny because I got turned on to painting at UMBC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I transferred there from College Park to finish up a semester in engineering, which is what I went to college for. At UMBC, I started to take classes in technical theater, lighting and set design, because I felt like it connected to engineering. And then once I started to discover my creativity, I couldn't even stand having a director, right? So I built a portfolio.
So interesting. Engineering? Yeah. So you have this really technical mind too.
No, I don't. My father was an engineer. I just thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I didn't really have a sense of that I could be something else.
Did that come from your parents? Was that like a thing you had to?
Yeah, I think they had a lot of fear. We're second generation immigrants. And so there was a lot of fear about whether or not I could, if I deviated from the path, I might not make a living.
Right.
Right. And I think more than anything, they wanted to be sure that I was independent and secure. And so they had a lot of fear about kind of dabbling into anything. So all of that stuff was very discouraged. Music, art, it was just not what the way they framed it was that we're not talented. And right? And that would be discouraging enough. I'm reading this Alice Munro book. Have you ever read Alice Munro? Anyway, she won the Nobel Prize for Literature for this book called Jupiter Moons. And I'm just reading it. I think I'm reading it for the second time. But anyway, it's Canadian. And she was saying in the 40s, it's a lot about homosexuality and in the 40s and how it was sort of marginalized and hidden and perceived. And they were saying that at that time, they blamed homosexuality on the choices that men made. So if a man had a sort of desire to sing in the choir or knit a tablecloth, crochet a tablecloth, that could lead
Turn you gay.
into
right. You could become gay.
I think that's what my parents thought. Like if I tried it, I might do it.
Right. I mean, it's like, I don't think homosexuality is, but art probably.
Well, at least for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I know plenty of people who try painting and they don't like it. They would prefer to study science.
Right.
My husband is one of those people.
But he's musical.
He does. Yes, he is. He does.
Yeah.
He's very committed to his guitar.
If not painting, that's one of the arts speaks to almost everybody.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I guess I haven't really thought about that. But I will think about that. I
mean, I consider even the arts like humanities, so it's a big
literature, poetry, things like that. Yeah.
Writers, philosophers.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, because, my definition of like how I think what an artist is, and it took me, I think 20 adult years before I could call myself an artist. It wasn't even a term I could.
Yeah.
I just was like, I don't even know what it is but now I'm like, it's exactly what I am. It's what I've been my whole life. It's like, I really understand it. But yeah, it's funny. Like, what is it? What's your version of it?
Well, I think.
What does it mean to be an artist?
For me, it's a home for an individual, myself included, who absolutely cannot fit in anywhere else. And that process for me, that process of making is where I find infinity or heaven or everything and nothing like that. I can fall into the place we're all striving to get to in our yoga practice, simply by painting. But that takes skill. Like the skills that I learned in the yoga practice, I think have helped me to sustain my concentration in painting, and my openness in painting to awareness and all of those things, sensation in my body, all of those things.
I know. I've been having all these amazing, like, as things have kind of been, I am rebuilding finally, after about 5 years. So it's like, I'm finally like, feel like things are starting to sort of like add back up, and it's like the things that are coming back and sort of like my strategy. It's like, I'm picking up things that I dropped 20 years ago, and somehow trying to thread them all into something that makes sense. And they're all still there. So it's like going back to painting for me was a huge thing that I had done actually from my recovery from my divorce. I had not picked up a paintbrush aside from making sets or painting things, also for 15 years. And so it was really just needing something to do with my grief. I would listen to Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes did this. She has this audio lecture series, which like saved my life those days. It's called Theater of the Imagination.
I haven't heard that.
It's really great. And she opens it talking about, what do you think the mother tongue is of all humanity? Is it Spanish? Is it Hebrew? Is it this? And she's like, it's visual images. That's our oldest language, and I was like, wow, yeah. Like, I'm an image person. I've always known that I was visual, and it's like, because it's beyond words, it's like something else. But, to do that, like, I came from a working class family, and like, it made no sense. Like, I was like, I got done with my degree. I was like, this is the most useless thing in the world. Like, I already knew I would never fit in the gallery world. Like, I was like, and the solitary aspect of being in the studio by yourself all the time when I was 20 was not interesting. So I immediately was just like, and so it was a surprise that I came back to it.
I think what you're saying is that, the form might change, and it's only through hindsight that you can see the continuity of your creative self.
Yeah.
And even though when the yoga got so big that I had to give up my gallery in Baltimore, and my studio. So that
Tell me that story, because I didn't know about that.
Well, after graduate school, I was lucky enough to be taken on by Grimaldis Gallery on Charles Street, which is he's got a great history. He carries Grace's paintings. He's, goes to Miami Basel. He's a wonderful dealer. And, he put me in a group show, and then he gave me a solo show, and then he took me to Miami Basel. But so here's the numbers. Let's say in my solo show, right, I earned $35,000, but selling 7 paintings, which is a successful show, but you divide that in half, right? So then it's $17,000. And then that happens every 2 years, right? Because this was pre-Instagram, right? Yeah. So $17,000 every 2 years, even if you made a few sales during the year. I didn't have a husband or a father or somebody who was going to pay for me.
Yeah.
So I couldn't make it work. And some people were willing. At that point, I knew, look, I either need to leave the yoga and Chris and kind of go to New York and try to make it. And I even bought an apartment in New York, right? All on the yoga money, right? But I just didn't want that. I wanted to not follow ambition as part of my creativity. And I still feel that way. So I had to tell Grimaldis, I'm sorry, I can't show. I'm giving up my studio. And that's when I started to make those tabletop drawings. And I probably made 600 of them. I had an exhibition of them at the Goucher Gallery in Baltimore. And they were these small watercolors with traditional yoga figures kind of in pen. And I made them while I was traveling to India, and at home. I made one every single day. And so I stayed connected to my art, even though I had decided I'm not going to follow what you would call this gallery path. And, sometimes I regret that. I think, I wasn't willing to live in poverty. That means that my art doesn't mean enough to me. And I think that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
Because the relationships that I had during the yoga and the way in which I understand myself, whether I want to label it as an artist or not, is what allows me to paint like I can paint today. And I think my paintings right now, it's not that I don't suffer while I'm making them, but I'm very content with them. I feel like they are, I feel like that they come out of me and they are like a viable creation.
When I did go back to my work, it became also kind of what I thought was beaten out of me when I found women's studies, which is really just like what I call now, like, I think what I do is like esoteric folk art, really. And that it's like, because it was very directly like a symbolic language, and it's now something that I really want to preserve, because I feel like it's part of the finding fluency in that language again. I've always loved Carl Jung and, just understanding dreams and subconscious and how we dream together and how all the collective energy kind of like works with the imagination, has been a lot of what I've been thinking about the last few years, and that because we're all permeable, like David Lynch says that quote all the time, about imagination being like fishing. You got to go deep, to get the big fish, but also if you don't catch it, someone else will. And the things that are trying to be birthed through us will find another place to go. Not doing like you're saying, or what was it?
Making not knowing.
Not knowing. Yeah. It's like, that is what artists do. We bring unformed things into being, thoughts, ideas, and that it does come through images and stuff first. So images help, what they say on my favorite Jungian podcast, it constellates the imagination for people. So it gives them ways in.
Yeah, and I mean, the realm of the imagination, for an artist, that's everything. And and it's as real as this, where we're sitting.
Yeah.
Right? It's as real.
Because it's connected to spirit. So this is funny, and you're going to laugh, because because all these years of being an artist and doing yoga, I had never connected my spiritual practice to my art before I read The Artist's Way. When I got hit by a cab and I had to go back to Baltimore and live with my sister, and I was just like benched for a whole summer, I was like, well, I guess it's time to do The Artist's Way. And that's what I did. Is
that what you did?
Yeah. But it was great, because what I got out of that was I still do morning pages. So I got a writing practice out of it. And I also just connected, because that was her whole thing, is she's like, just talks about like how ideas come to you, and connected it through spirit in a way that I hadn't before. And then I was like, whoa, of course. Like, how did I not see that? Like,
yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I don't see any difference at all between, and I don't practice. So we moved to Palm Desert because there's an Ashtanga studio, a traditional Ashtanga studio, and a traditional Iyengar teacher.
Oh my God, amazing.
I haven't been once. Because when I got here, I sat with what is, and to go inside a room for 90 minutes now in the morning seemed like the most absurd thing in the world I could possibly do, when I can get on my bike for 3 hours and basically have the same experience. I do still stretch. So I practice asana for 20 minutes every morning, but that's it. But that's all it takes me now to make that connection.
Yeah.
And it puts me in my body, and then I get on my bike, I go, and I come back, and I come here, or I would go into my garage before I was here. And that, I've sat Vipassana many times. So 10 days of what we would call these 14-hour sits. And my life is that now, even though I do have a beer every now and then, and I eat some meat, and because I'm responding to what is rather than any shoulds, which was part of the reason that we had to kind of leave Baltimore. We loved it there, but once we had sold the yoga studios, right, in a way I was still the guru of that community. And, you go to the grocery store, everybody's looking in your cart, you in the restaurant, and it's not, there's nothing more flattering than people saying, you changed my life. It was great. But that,
it's a burden.
It is. I can't imagine what it's like to be really famous, And so came out here where I'm nobody. Mm-hmm. And, here I am. Still the same, which is good. It's great.
Do you miss, what are the things you miss about your yoga guru life?
Well, there are individuals there that I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. But I was so committed to maintaining boundaries with the community. So
integrity, I would call it.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
Yeah, so that we had no...
bullshit.
Yeah. That, in a way, I couldn't really cultivate deep friendships with anyone who was somewhat associated with Charm City Yoga. So that left me feeling I had a nice art community there, but again, because I couldn't commit to the art, so it was, I probably could have immersed myself in that once the yoga was finished. But the weather was so much better out here. And I have a great community. The cycling community and the art community.
Did you have any of that before you got here, or that all came after?
Yeah. In fact, I started to ride my bike in Baltimore because of the oil spill. Remember that? Was it in New Orleans? Where was that?
I don't remember.
No, the big one.
Yeah.
And I started to ride. I decided I'm only going to drive 2 days a week from here on out. So I rode my bike the other 5 days. So I did that for whatever it was, 2 or 3 years until we moved here. And I was just pushing my bike around at a garage sale. And this guy said, "Are you a cyclist?" And I was like, "No, not really." He said, "Well, come to this easy ride on Sunday." And I found this incredible community, which was far better than because I do go to the, a couple of other yoga studios here, not the Ashtanga, and the community compared to what we had at Charm City.
Oh, it's still, I always called it my home studio. It was always, I got to do yoga all over the world. And I always, anytime I visit my family, I would always go to a class. It was just home. Yeah. Totally.
And it was so warm and so loving and so welcoming, no matter what studio you went to or who you were, and that came from the students as much as
I think it's you made a community, and it's definitely, I would give you all the credit for it.
That's sweet of you, but I can't take that. But so I didn't find that in the yoga world here.
I don't think it's in the yoga world anymore because I can't find it. Yeah. And I'm looking for this in all the things that I loved.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, well then it's time to start over and reform it because. And I keep, on the drive down here, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about and just kind of going through my head and being like, I'm in a more optimistic place even about yoga and everything than I have been in a while. But it's because I feel like I lost everything and had to find my way back to it. And I'm still here. And one thing I want to do because I never even felt like I got a chance to teach properly, but I always also struggled with the integrity of working in nightlife,
right?
Doing what I did and just, whatever that life was. And not that even I was crazy, but, I never did cocaine in all my years of doing all that stuff somehow, it was still an imbalance that I was always very aware of. And it
between the yoga and the
nightlife. Yeah. So it weighed on me. In terms of, can I be that person that everyone's looking in their cart and wonder, is this how you do it? Is that what it looks like? And this is, always this,
right?
I don't know, comparison, because I was like, well, Kim really did it. You introduced so many people to yoga. It was there was nothing going on like that. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know if I was going to die from the heat. I had no frame of reference. My introduction to yoga was buying a Shivananda book to do drawings out of in college, and I did a lot of I was just
that's a great book, by the way.
I just re-got it. I'm rebuying every book I got rid of to come out here. It's because I go to the thrift stores and one of the things I want at my studio, I want it to be like an artist Elks Lodge. So I'm well, we need a good library. So I've just been
great idea.
Stocking the library with everything I can find. But I'm it's cracking me up because I'm Marie Kondo can suck it. What are you going to do? I can't not have books. Like, it's ridiculous.
No, it's true.
It's just like now I'm trying to be at my highest level of functioning in each of these things that I'm good at.
Yeah.
You know, and be able to switch gears in my brain between them faster. So that's where I'm at now in like my art practice and all the things. But it's interesting because even with my yoga, so I've gone back to Dharma Mitra actually recently, I cry and die every time I did a class with him this morning. And it makes me so happy, you know, because it's just so real. And it's like, but so many things about my practice. It's like,
it's right there.
It's right there. I close my eyes. It's like, boom. You know, it's like, but keeping yourself in that place of that stuff being that accessible, that's the part of American life and how our culture is. We have to fight so hard, you know, and I'm just like, we need more of that culture that's what I'm like, how do we find that? Like, how do we create more of that, like in how this country is?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big question. First of all, just to go back to the yoga, as the person who was bringing yoga to Baltimore, I honestly felt I had to tell you guys exactly what I thought it was, but I felt like I did not feel like but I mean, I couldn't, like, I was never able to get on board with the wine and yoga thing, like, because I was like,
you have to preserve that.
It's not what it is.
Right.
Now, I don't know if I feel that way anymore because it has become what it is, which is so far from what the traditional practice that I was learning in India. Mm-hmm. So, not if you go to a Dharma Mitra class, by the way, but but anything else, right? All of these new chains and all these so I guess I just wanted you guys to know this is what it is. And this is what is required to retrain your mind in this path. And that, that was kind of what we were working on. Mm-hmm. But I came to yoga because I broke my back when I was 18 years old. And it was partially because I was an engineering student. I was home in the summer. My family was at the beach. I was studying for summer school calculus exam at Towson, which I was trying to pass calculus because I was failing for the first time in my life. And, I basically jumped out of a third-story window and broke my back. So went to shock trauma for 30 days, and was in what's called a striker bed. So you lay in this bed, and when they want to flip you, they put another bed on top, and they turn the whole bed over so that you're basically immobilized for 30 days. And that's, I think, where I learned to meditate. It's also where I think I learned about unconditional love, because the nurses in that shock trauma, they were just like angels.
So I never heard this part of the story, though, that it was sort of more intentional, that you were really unhappy.
Well, it was like this. I'm like, studying calculus. I'm not happy. I'm starting to drink. I'm starting to take some pills. I'm on the third floor. My boyfriend's down on the street. I'm yelling at him. I get really hot. I take off my shirt. I throw up on the carpet. I fall out the window. So it's like, is that suicide? Like,
solid cry for help. Let's go to solid cry for help.
And it's like only now I can kind of like
even laugh about it.
Yeah. And it was hard on my parents. But anyway, so I think that is what, and then from there, that's when I was in a brace. I had a cane. Instead of going back to College Park, I went to UMBC. Mm-hmm. And I passed all my classes, finished that semester, and switched to technical theater.
And so when in that, did you find yoga?
So after MICA. Mm-hmm. So I went to MICA,
How old were you
my painting degree. Well, I probably graduated MICA. Maybe I was 22. I was on the 5 or 6 year program in college. And then I moved to Arizona with Will and took my first yoga class in 1988.
Wow.
And then came back, started studying rebirthing, conscious breathing. That's why my practice was always so breath centered. So I had 2 or 3 years of conscious breathing and sort of rehabilitating myself through the breath. And then started to go to Kripalu to study yoga and got my first teacher training from Kripalu.
Who was your first teacher training with?
Well, I've taken so many trainings.
I know. I couldn't even remember. I was like, I know she did Bikram and Bear.
Yeah.
I went to Mysore a bajillion times.
Yeah.
I was like trying to figure it out too. I was like,
yeah. So they had staff. This was right after the guru was taken down through the scandal.
At Kripalu. I didn't know that.
So when I was there for my teacher training, you would walk in the halls and there'd be these black, dusty rectangles on the wall where the photos
ripped off. What did he do? This is before canceling too.
Yeah, no, he actually had an entire ashram of devotees living celibate, living vegetarian, living, completely sattvic, and he was sleeping with the students. With his wife and children in the main house.
Now, is that an American westernized problem, or does that happen a lot in India too?
It happens everywhere. It happens in India.
It's just people. It's a people problem.
Yeah, I think it's different in India. But even, I think it's a power problem.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to, to be a person and have young, beautiful people kind of throwing themselves at you, and to be able to restrain yourself from that. And that's me being generous.
Yeah.
Because I had no problem.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to share the teachings, but I didn't have that kind of power. But I had enough power that I could have abused it. So...
And so how many times how many trips do you think you made to India?
Oh, I think I've been to India maybe 12 times. If you want to know about the root of yoga, and the where it comes from.
Well, it's interesting because, as my spiritual studies have expanded and, you see all the correspondences between all the different traditions and where they overlap and where they're different and which things are more efficient. I actually really just appreciate yoga as a spiritual system that works.
Yeah.
It has stood the test of time for me. Yeah. That it's gotten me, I've healed myself also through a car accident. I could not get to any physical therapy during that. I've done physical things. It healed me through my divorce. Yeah. It's gotten me, and the injury prevention of a very physical career, it got me through all that, let alone the meditation, the breathing, plus just providing a framework for living an ethical life without having a religious upbringing.
Yeah.
Because I didn't, and so a lot of what I feel like America has is kind of that, which is it's a spiritual vacuum, that people, it's very unanchored because people don't want religion.
Right.
But we need spirit. Yeah. And there's no way in. So bringing yoga here, it's interesting because I'm it is going to change and it is going to keep growing.
It's complicated because, traditionally yoga is based in Hinduism.
Right.
And Hinduism is as backward as Christianity.
Yeah.
So when you really the thing about American egos is that we have a hard or firm enough ego, we can go to India and sort of have the sampler and pick what we want and see what we want in the tradition, and take what we want. And so I'm just very careful not to exoticize. If you go to India, the young people, although there is a resurgence in India of yoga, and there are some of my students in India teaching yoga, so they're teaching it in a sort of westernized way that's appealing to young people. But, you know, yoga was in a way like square dancing, in the sense that you did it in elementary school and then you never thought about it again. Right? Right. And so until, you know, these Westerners started going there and made Pattabhi Jois what he is. I mean, that's what happened. And the same with Iyengar, and the same with Deska Char. Those are basically California people who went there and lifted these guys up. Mm-hmm. So, but I agree with you that there's something about the American or the Westerner who, when they apply that tool, something is filled that was missing, right?
Yeah, but it's also, it isn't complete, because you do get kind of to the, like, it is, and maybe because the religion isn't in it.
Yeah.
Because there isn't as much mythology as you need. Yeah. And like, but I get that from my art. So yeah, it isn't like a complete thing.
Yeah. I always got that from Richard Freeman. I mean, all of the Ganesh and the Hanuman and the Shiva and the Vishnu, like, you know, to me, they were not, I mean, they were religious characters, but they were mythological.
Yeah.
Because I think our culture is devoid of imagination. Mm-hmm. And storytelling, and, you know, which all of these things can kind of, and magic even.
Totally.
You know, it's all about appearance. So much is about appearance. And
I mean, by definition, yoga is magic. Most religions even still qualify as magic when you define it as trying to get the material world to conform to your will.
That's a great definition.
So it's like you can do that with your mind.
And you can do that with paint.
And you can do that with your body. And slowly the world starts to shift.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's all magic. Yeah. So that's why it's like, that's why to me, the spirit talk part of it and the art part of it, like it is all the same thing. Yeah. But but talking about it is very abstract and hard, and we don't have a lot of language. Embodiment is a magical practice. So when I think back of all the things I've learned recently, and then looking even at my career and how I got my painting degree, and I wanted to take everything off the walls, and I started performing immediately. You know, it was like I wanted to be it. Yeah. It's like it wasn't enough. It wasn't direct enough.
I think that's what happened to me after undergrad. Once I found yoga, like,
but it gives you, it's like you learn. It's like for all those years, just thinking about balance and practicing balance. Mm-hmm. It's like, powerful.
Right.
You know, it really is. And like, and to do that practice over time and to have really, you know, just experienced it is, you know, I love it again. Like I'm back in love with it, you know, so.
Yeah. And well, you're not, I mean, because every time we look outside of ourselves for satisfaction,
right,
it's elusive. Yeah. You think it's coming. You think you're going to get it. But I mean, you know, and I mean, I have small goals, but.
Any you want to share?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping to continue to immerse myself in the art world here. I'm hoping to allow that, those relationships to expand so that I can, be part of the greater art world, you know, being included in group shows, being invited onto residencies, things like that, with the sole purpose of continuing to dive deeper into the art making practice, right? So, you know, I want, any affirmation that I'm looking for is simply to continue the momentum, you know, that I have to keep making.
Do you think that's because it really is like, a little bit of it is rote, right? It's like a lot of it is just repetition in the technique. Do you think it's that, or do you think it is like the creative side? Like,
I think the paintings pile up. You know, and it's like if they don't go somewhere or they're not valued by anyone but myself, I start to feel like a crazy person.
I think of them as my creative children.
Yeah.
As a woman also that didn't have children.
Yeah.
But also just attaching the creative capacity so hugely to my work. I'm like I think of each show as having a life of its own, the way a child would, and that I'm just the caretaker. But I know what you mean, that they have to be experienced and it needs to be witnessed, and it almost doesn't exist.
Yeah, I know, but that's why it's nice that they have a life and that they go out and that they leave, and that, you know, somebody brings them home, or they go into a show, or you know, or they, you know, make a community happy. Right now I have a outdoor show in Indio, and you know, that feels very fulfilling to like be part of a community. So that those kinds of things just are little goals that I have.
Can you tell everyone about your space? I know we started out talking about that, but I don't think you told them about the space.
So this space, it's really nice. In Perez Road, the road that we're on is sort of an industrial district where there's a lot of tile stores, flooring stores, furniture stores, things like that. And so on this particular street, artists started to move in. And right now there's 15 artists on this block, maybe I guess 6 or 7 studios, 2 to a space. Each space has a little exhibition space in the front, and then we have workspace with big tall ceilings and lots of, you know, kind of light, and garage doors in the back, big, you know, tall industrial doors in the back. So everything that we want is here. And for me, like the minute I got here and started having room for my body to move around, the paintings started to change a little bit.
What was the decision to move out of your garage? Like, you needed more space, or this was like more of being a public face for the art to have?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, first and foremost was community. And then I had a friend who has a studio here who said, look, you need to have more eyes on your work. And right now, if somebody wants to see your work, they might see it on Instagram if they know you. But if they don't know you, they don't know about you. And when they're ready to look at art, you need to be accessible. And so I decided that sounded good. And I was willing to give that a try. And this space is a sublet, so I only am committed through October. You know, we have open studios on first Fridays of the month, where we have an art walk. And 4 artists came in and bought paintings, you know, and I took that as a sort of sign of support and encouragement, again, validation about the work. Because when artists are buying your work, then it's not like they're like, oh, that's going to look good over the sofa, right?
It's like your work.
Yeah. So that feels really nice too. So,
I mean, it seems like there's a lot of artists here.
Yeah.
Relative.
You mean in the valley? Well, and in Joshua Tree. I mean, this
Joshua Tree I knew about, but down here,
there's a lot.
They're just a lot.
Yeah, there's several nonprofit arts organizations. One in Indio that I'm very involved with, who's completely committed to showing art that's non-commercial, you know, and so that cultivates. So what we have is, it's very white here. So when I say diverse, you have to take it with a grain of salt, with me being from Baltimore, because it's not diverse. It's very white. But that aside, there is diversity in the art making, in the sense that there are people who are making conceptual works. And with Desert X coming in, we're more aware of, you know, just how kind of relevant artwork can be, all the way down to, you know, the most decorative California thing you could ever imagine that would look great on a sofa, you know. So we have everything, you know. And
what's Desert X?
It's good. Oh, so Desert X is an outdoor exhibition, which is runs for a couple of months. They've had 2 so far, and this one, I think, maybe got a little postponed because of COVID, and they have basically international artists come and do installations in the desert, all the way from the Salton Sea to, you know, the base of the aerial tram. And they're well-known artists like Oscar Murillo or Judy Chicago, or, you know, there were important people making here in the desert. So it's bringing LA out to look at art.
It's so hard. It's so hard to be. I just wish it was
here.
easier for artists. Like, that's the thing. I'm like, but I don't know what it would take, because I'm like, it's not just money.
It is. Don't you
there's
think?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's that.
Because, you're always. So I had a studio visit, which I thought was the most incredible studio visit. Important collector people coming through, talked about the work, looked at the work, stayed with the work for a long time, right? And I couldn't have been more thrilled. The next day, I go on social media, and I'm going to change the names so that no one is offended. But, the post is like, I bought 4 Smiths, 7, Johnsons, and 2, whatever, blades. And, and so is that success? Like, because my name was not in there, it was an incredibly satisfying studio visit. It had nothing to do with whether, and in fact, I feel like secretly, I feel a little better about my work that it wasn't in that pile. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody buys 4 Johnsons, 2 Smiths.
Right.
Those are the ones that are in everyone's house. So I guess what I'm saying is, being an artist is not an easy path, and I don't know that I would want it to be.
I feel that way in some regard, because I just feel like life is hard.
Yeah.
So I'm like, at least being an artist, I took Joseph Campbell's advice. I really listened to him. I followed my bliss my whole life. Tried to do very little damage in life.
Yeah, that's the least possible. Yeah. I mean, you have to do some. It's impossible. Remember that story I used to always tell about even those women? I forget what religion they are in India, and they wear masks so that they don't inhale bugs.
Yeah,
like even they accidentally step on one every now and then.
Exactly. Right.
There are also phases in life that you don't necessarily want to be rigid in forever. So, like when I was 18 or whatever, there was an idealism that I'm seeing in my nephews. Thank God, because they're ready to save the planet from global warming, right? But, is it my... yes, I'm thrilled for them. And I feel like that is my role at this point in my life, rather than, for me, right, maybe working on solutions in coding to solve the global warming, which is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? And so they have to be embodying that idealism that goes along with vegetarianism, or goes along with strict, rigorous yoga practice or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then there's another phase where we're, at least for me, where I'm kind of, I guess, simply experiencing things.
Right.
Simply experiencing life in a way that is valuable to him, because he looks at me as someone who's living a great life as an artist, right? That's not stuck in a job, that, is creative person. And that's feeding into his desire to be a transformational coder, right? And so I don't know. I think these changes are natural and maybe even necessary. It's hard to know what the right way to engage. I mean, I just try to live a simple life. We have one car. It's an 45 mile a gallon car. It's, we live a very simple life, make as small a footprint as possible, and vote for people who are for change and support companies that are for change, and make paintings that are about, like, living an active, simple life that leaves a small carbon footprint. And yet I know that's not enough. It's going to take someone like my nephew or Bill Gates, who so courageously came out with his new book, right, on how we can fix which is inspiring people like my nephew to actually reject the materialism that you're talking about. I mean, I
think we have to. It's first of all, it's like over-identification with form, right? Yeah. It's like
But I've never engaged in it. Neither have you.
No, and we know this, but we know why. We know this through being artists and also through yoga. You know what I mean? But that's what the name of it is. It's like, but this is what everyone is doing, and it's what Western medicine is. It's what any system in America, is it. But it's like, and really, I'm just like with all of it. I'm like, you pull on one thread, and the whole thing comes unraveled.
Well, like COVID, it all came unraveled.
But also with even Western medicine, like just that they won't even talk about nutrition. Like a doctor, for liability reasons, can't get into talking about spirit, nutrition, energetics, how all these things are going to affect you. It's ridiculous. Like, it's just like, and this is, so, America is still in this, on the frontier, because we are the patient and the therapist in our lives in every way, because we haven't, and we're a young country. Europe has figured out quality of life a long time ago. They figured out culture.
Yeah, but they certainly haven't figured out the vaccine.
Comparing to older countries. Yeah. America, I feel like we're in a bratty teenage phase.
Yeah, well, we were built on greed.
Yes.
I mean,
and so there's a lot of
slaughter.
Right.
and so is
Europe. I mean, it's like, so is every single place in the planet. It's like, that's what human beings have been doing to each other since we've been here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, now what? But we are out here, and I feel like America, in a way, I like it because it's like, it's harder, but we also have more agency and we have a little bit more freedom. Like that, we don't have all the tradition and structure and all that sort of heavy stuff.
As Americans, you mean?
Mm-hmm. So it's like we have the ability to, think more freely about it. But, because, and I do agree that, like, and the things that I keep returning to are very simple. Storytelling, it's really simple.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I think the wealth inequality is a big problem.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't necessarily have a solution, but if you talk about Western medicine, for example, which I am not an expert at, but I do know, right, when you're in poverty, it's much harder to eat well.
Yeah.
And the messages, we got rid of Spectrum, and so we're watching local news on Hulu, which is the first time I've watched local news, and I look at these commercials,
oh my God, I know.
and I think, my God, like people don't know even how to eat well, because the commercials are just promoting, poison. So how do you get a physician to convince somebody who's sitting home watching these commercials not to drink Coke and eat, supersized portions or whatever it is, and so is that the physician's job, or is it the commercials that's the problem? And all of that is to make profits for companies.
Yeah.
So I guess an artist makes an alternative lifestyle accessible. We
do the research. I think of it as research. I feel like we have to live on the frontier, like artists, writers, athletes, scientists. Like, that's the edge, right? We're the ones that are like doing the experiments in our own lives of like, can this work? Is this sustainable? And, then can you scale it up or, take it elsewhere or whatever. But I think of all these things as just experiments, The
first time I found out that like eating rice and beans was something my parents wanted to get away from because it was a sign of poverty, when really it is a perfect protein and nothing to be ashamed of, right? And so you think about how many people are striving to have meat on their plate every single night. I feel like,
how do we get there?
Yeah.
Any ideas?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, in a way, I think it always has to exist, the yin and the yang.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
but I'm not trying to make excuses for it. I think the revolutions that are happening in Hong Kong and, around the world, I think that is what has to happen everywhere. I mean, people have to just say no and find a way to support one another no matter what the consequence is.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add? This has been great talking to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I just wanted to thank you for, taking the time to elevate the artist.
Yeah. Well, nice. I believe in you.
Oh, that's nice.
Individually and metaphorically.
As the archetype. Yeah, that's good.
I'm sorry, I know you don't want to be an archetype anymore.
That's good.
Maybe this one is a little less restrictive.
It is. It's not, I mean, the tradition is very liberated.
Yeah. It's been interesting. I do feel reconnected to my lineage of painting very much. Like I've gone very much back to some of my original influences.
That's amazing.
And even getting back into Jung, like that's where I left off, was like kind of in surrealism.
Have you read his Red Book? Do you know his Red
I know
book?
all about it. I don't have a copy.
I have a copy.
Yeah.
I should send it to you. It's just on a coffee table. Maybe I will. Okay. It's great.
I'll put it in the library at the Nest.
His drawing.
Yeah, I've seen so much of it, and I know a lot.
It's a big book.
Yeah. And I mean, and what a great, he just left such a legacy. Like I think about legacy a lot with him and like what I would want my legacy to be. And the fact that he created a living tradition, which lives on, through Jungian analysis and depth psychology, which was, and that's what we do in our little sphere. My little world of cabaret is how I'm going to do it. It's going to come up through there and it might go into branch out into other ways, but that's like sort of the seed that I start with, and his was psychology. So it's just like, it's like that. And then that is the way. And it's always like you build it up and then it has to come back down. And then it's like through the making and unmaking and remaking and making again, it's like then the foundation holds,
Yeah. No, I think so. And I mean, I think sort of, I mean, I hate when people say, oh, we're at a tipping point. But I think people are starting to realize the emptiness of materialism.
They feel it.
At least here in the U.S. And it's going to take a long time for all the people who don't have it yet.
The thing that really upset me about LA, because I've never been in a city with so many artists, like the density of incredible artists, but because it was so close to the source of the power, I used to call it the pits of Mordor. Like everyone like loses their minds and they turn into these other people, and they become very stingy with their gifts. And I get it because a lot of, they're like, well, I'm finally setting my rates and I'm finally not gonna take less than I'm worth. And, so they get into that mode and then they're like, so I'm not gonna help you for free on your thing. Right. And I'm like, but I think my thing would be more fun if we ever made money from it because we'd love it.
And that you're making art.
Yeah.
Versus the career.
But the number of people that know how to play like that, like I'm not finding them. And so that really worried me. And that's why I was like, oh, I'm not slowing down at all because this is serious. I'm worried. People don't know how to, it's play. Like my thing starts with play and creativity. But I'm like, people don't know how to play. That's bad.
Yeah, so I mean, all you have to do is keep going, right, and keep sharing the word, and that's what my painting is too. I mean, I don't call it play, but
experimentation.
Yeah, right? It's entering the mystery, right? It's not. It's certainly not.
That's exactly what it is.
Making a product that it has a predictable result,
right.
Even if that result is very fine, it's not what I do.
How would you feel really satisfied, if you can imagine yourself kind of at the end of your life, what would it take for you to feel satisfied?
I think to continue to deepen my relationship with the artistic community and to be, treasured there and to be able to treasure my colleagues. Right? I mean, for me, that's, and I think that ripples out, like you're saying. I think that's my contribution is like, I want my art to be valued, but I want it to be part of the conversation. It's not like I want to make the best paintings in the world. I want to be part of the conversation about the imagination and the invisible and the, intangible and the mysterious.
Yeah. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been amazing. Reconnecting with you is just like fills me so much.
Yeah.
So I love you dearly. Thank you.
Too. Yeah.
Oh, feels so good. Talk to someone you love so much, doesn't it? I hope you got a contact high off of that one. It's a really special conversation for me to have, as are all of these. I'm just taking you all along on my own creative journey. These are questions that I am pondering as I think about the larger role that artists play in our culture and what we can do about how shitty things have felt the last couple years. And this podcast is part of my answer. And I hope that you are feeling the effects in your own life and considering your own creative contributions to the culture, big or small. You don't have to self-identify as an artist. Everyone is creative. Everyone has creative capacity. Everyone creates in the world all the time. So all of these conversations are for that part of your life. So good luck out there. Be sure to stay in touch. You can help us out a lot by liking all the things, giving us lots of, positive encouragement publicly, I guess is the way that we attract the algorithmic favor that allows more people to expand their minds with these ideas. And while I don't like that system, that's the one we're in. So you guys help me navigate it. Help me get this little dinghy out in the ocean. Whatever that is. All right, you guys, get out of here. Thanks to my co-producer, Burgundy Bricks, who keeps me tethered. Thank you to the Wizard of Frederick Lewis, who I try to give you many things to do all the time, Fred, in how I record these, keeping you real busy. So you're welcome for that. And you all stay in touch on vivalarenaissance.net. There's an email list, which is really the entry point and the way to stay in touch. I also can be found on trixieLittle.com. We have Instagrams for these things, and that's it. That's the only social media I'm on right now. So, all right, till next time, please keep it weird. It's so much more interesting that way. All right, y'all, I have to go get to that chainsaw. Till the next time, I'm Trixie Little signing off. Be sure to keep it weird.